Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Beat Reporters Inbox on MLB.com, presented by Edward Jones. I'm Thomas Harding, your Rockies reporter, and I have Sandy Charles with me asking the questions. Sandy, what is our first question?
Okay, Thomas, Daniel wants to know, will Jon Gray be the best pitcher homegrown to ever put on a purple uniform?
I'll tell you what, great question there. Jon Gray, third overall pick a few years back out of the University of Oklahoma. He's off to a pretty good career start, but let's look at the Rockies' history. The best pitcher in their history was Ubaldo Jimenez when you count WAR, and really most of his WAR was built over a 3-year period, 2008 to 2010. Rockies were good at that time. For Jon Gray to surpass him, he's going to have a longer period of pitching well. The best thing about Gray is that he hasn't had a major arm injury. I look back a few years back, Jeff Francis had that shot, but after his good period, which ended with the 07 World Series, he had a shoulder injury that really curtailed his career. So if Jon Gray stays healthy, he's the guy.
Tom wants to know, based on what you've seen so far, what are you most excited about with the upcoming season?
I posted a story yesterday on MLB.com and Rockies.com on Trevor Story, how he's improved as a situational hitter, not just a power guy looking to hit the ball over the fence, but with guys on base, he's getting the right kind of at-bat, walking when he needs to. That's the first thing. The other is Ryan McMahon, who's trying to make it as the starting first baseman. I know that Ian Desmond is here. Desmond plays some outfield. McMahon has been pretty steady throughout the camp, but the last 10, 12 days will show when he's facing regular Major League pitching.
Johnston wants to know, who do you see making the opening day roster with Pat Valakia and O'Malley injured? Who will be the fourth outfielder, David Dahl or Tapia?
I'll tell you, those are two good names to look at. They are very good players. Tapia did it off the bench last year, which I think gives him a bit of an advantage, whereas David Dahl missed all of last year with an injury, didn't play in the major leagues. However, there are other names in this running. You look at Mike Tauchman, who also played well for the team last year as a pinch runner, off the bench type of guy. There's also a right-handed hitter named Noel Cuevas, who hasn't appeared in the majors, but he plays all three outfield positions. And Jordan Patterson plays the outfield and first base, so it's still a competition at this point.
Gina asks, now that Cargo is back, how do you see the Rockies outfield lining up?
I'll tell you what, it could be a very good outfield. All left-handed hitters, but Gerardo Parra in left field, he got some Gold Glove votes last year, was actually a finalist for the award. Charlie Blackmon, what a year he had in center field. A lot of people around Denver believe he should have been the MVP. And, of course, Cargo in right. Now, what you could do with Ian Desmond when he's not playing first base is play him in left field. And if he can get that bat going, which has been a struggle this spring, he's a weapon for you. Then you could bring Parra off the bench for defensive purposes when he's not starting.
Susan wants to know, how confident is Bud Black with the starting rotation?
I'll tell you what, he likes what he's seen out of that rotation. And here's the key here. They didn't go out and get a veteran to save them. I mean, last year they had 4 rookies in the starting rotation for most of the season, and they stuck with that. They didn't make a trade at the deadline. Their leaders, Gray, Tyler Anderson, and Chad Bettis, inspirational leader for this team, they feel like those guys are veteran enough, and they've pitched well enough at Coors Field that they can get through this thing. The starting rotation was the reason they went to the playoffs last year, and if they can stay healthy like they did last year, then that'll be the thing they'll lean on this year.
Next question is from Josh. Blackmon and DJ will be free agents next season. Will they re-sign both of them?
Oh boy, that's a tough question there, because you're talking about 2 all-star type players. And as you saw this winter, the difficulty in keeping guys really made things slow this offseason. They had Greg Holland, who had all those saves last year, ended up not keeping him, ended up getting Cargo basically because there wasn't much of a market out there. You expect a Charlie Blackmon to have a good market, but he'll be, 32 years old. There is a possibility that maybe the market of bidders isn't out there and the Rockies can retain him. With DJ LeMahieu, very valuable guy for this team. There may be a contract here, there may be a contract elsewhere. The Rockies, though, at both positions are developing a lot of good talent, whether it's Brendan Rodgers and Justin Hampson, Garrett Hampson in the infield, or Dahl, Tapia, those guys in the outfield. So they can replace them. So it'll just come down to what will be the best deal for both players and the team.
Chris wants to know about Chris Iannetta. Do you see him being the everyday catcher, or will there be a platoon?
Well, when you look at everyday catcher here in Colorado, it's not really the same concept as elsewhere, because in Colorado it's a tough home environment with the dryness and the long games. No one since Yorvi Torrealba started 114 games in 2007, no one has started that many. So you look at Iannetta, can he get to 100 games, 105, 110 games? That would be wonderful. But then you have Tony Walters that they're breaking in as a catcher. Over the last 2 years, he's done a pretty good job for them. You figure there's playing time for him. And also Tom Murphy, one of the top prospects in the organization. He's battling to try to make the opening day roster, but you figure you're going to need him during the course of the season.
Alec wants to know, what prospects for the Rockies are you looking to have a breakout year?
Right now, I'm looking at Ryan McMahon. Can he have that breakout year? And frankly, even though David Dahl has exhausted his rookie status, I see him still as a prospect because he hasn't had that opportunity to start over the course of a season for them. Toward the end of the year, you wonder, would a guy like a Brendan Rodgers, the top prospect according to MLB Pipeline, would he be ready to come up and play some second base and shortstop for them?
Sam's question is, how many wins do you think for Kyle Freeland this season?
He was able to manage 11 last year, tied for the Major League lead-in wins. This is a guy, I like him a lot because he is aggressive with his fastball, throws inside to right-handers, and if his changeup develops, he could win a lot of games. I look for a guy that could have an ERA in the threes and quite possibly be one of the better pitchers in this division. Wins is kind of hard to come by because, you know, it's dependent on other things. But if he wins 12 or 13 games, I think the Rockies are a very successful team.
Tim's question is, anyone throwing the idea of more of a super pen by adding Holland?
The Rockies attempted to sign Greg Holland during the offseason. Like I say, with all the saves last year, I think, 42 last year, he wanted to look and see what was out there on the market. Well, in that interim, Wade Davis, who was 32 of 33 on save chances, signed to be here with the Rockies. I mean, it would be nice. I don't know where Greg Holland is right now as far as contract is concerned. He's not signed. If a team needs a closer, obviously, he would probably go there. That would be nice, but I really think that ship has sailed.
Lenny wants to know, how will year 2 under Bud Black be any different?
Okay, two things, pitching and catching. Last year, he had a whole lot of young pitchers and was able to juggle them. They only used 8 pitchers all season, even with some injuries. But those guys know a little bit more about pitching. Also catching. When you have a veteran like Iannetta in here from the beginning and you have Walters the second year under him, the pitch calling should be better. They'll know their pitchers a little bit better. The pitchers will know the league a little bit better.
This question is from Tom. Who would be the pinch hitter off the bench this season?
I think Pat Valaika. He's right now nursing a left oblique injury, but when he gets back, this is a guy who, as a rookie last year, set a record. The rookie rule has been in effect since 1958. He had 16 pinch hit RBIs. That's a real weapon to have, especially for a guy that young.
Jason wants to know, will the pen be strong enough to bridge from starter to Wade Davis?
It needs to be. It has to be. If you look at the history of the Rockies, when they've gone to the playoffs, they've had one of the best pens in baseball. And last year, their save percentage was behind only the Indians. So that is why you go out and you get a Wade Davis and a Brian Shaw, who had pitched for the Cleveland Indians, and also retain Jake McGee, the left-hander, who really had a good year last year after dealing with some injuries. And then you look at Adam Ottavino. He had a down year last season, but before that, for about 3 years, was one of the best right-handed relievers in the game. You keep that together, and also some of the younger guys, especially Scott Oberg, who's pitched well this spring. They need to have a pen that way. That's one of the key ways to win games.
Mary's question, will Arenado get some MVP love this season?
I would hope so. I mean, if you look at what he did last year, what's not to like about him? It seems like a lot of people don't really study it and just say, oh, he was at Coors Field. Well, this guy, from a power perspective, has been as good on the road as at home. And when people throw that Coors Field out there, what they don't understand is when you're constantly adjusting from environment to environment, I think it's one of the bigger changes in all of baseball. But you look at him, defensively, he wins ball games for you with his glove. He is probably the preeminent player at his position. If there is an MVP love, then I guess someone else is having a better year or people aren't paying attention.
Roland wants to know, with Cargo back, where do you see him batting in the lineup?
I see Cargo going back to the third position like he has for the last several years. However, you can drop him to fifth against a good left-handed hitter, because the way that Trevor Story is hitting right now, you move him into the fourth spot. So I see Cargo being in a run-producing spot, same as ever.
Patrick wants to know, if the Rockies are challenging for their first NL West pennant in late July, which prospect would they be willing to let go in order to add that needed missing piece?
That is a good question, because if you look at what the Rockies did last year, they needed catching, they needed help in the bullpen. So what did they do? They traded with the Phillies for Pat Neshek, and also with the Rangers for Jonathan Lucroy. What they did, though, was they traded young guys that the other team scouts really liked, that they didn't have to protect on the 40-man roster. So they didn't really give up any top prospects, guys close to the major leagues. If you look at the fact that the Rockies like to develop their own guys and regenerate that way when they lose a free agent, it's really hard for them to give up somebody who they think is going to start for them in the major leagues, or it's close to it. So I would look at some of the guys lower in the minors that are very good players.
And Desmond is traded.
That's a funny question here, because he's struggling. I think 1 for 22 this spring, but you're talking about a veteran player where I don't think that necessarily carries into the year. He is making an adjustment with his hand position in the batter's box. So what he needs to do is get some more at bats. He'll go down to the minor league camp, get some of those there, and should be ready for the opening day. And that's my last question. Thanks for watching the Beat Reporters Inbox presented by Edward Jones. Join us again next time.